Please be seated. Bruce Springsteen sings in his seminal classic, Born in the USA, born down in a dead man's town. The first kick I took was when I hit the ground. End up like a dog that's been beat too much till you spend half your life just covering up. Advent is a season of darkness. And the more we allow ourselves to be in that darkness and wrestle with what the darkness brings, the brighter the light of Christmas shines when it comes. And I say this now because when I think about Advent, I think about our forebears, and I think about the slaves in Egypt, and I think about our forebears in Jerusalem who were alive when Jesus was born, and what conditions they were living under. Whether they were living under Pharaoh's rule, and they were essentially seen as castaways, cast-asides. Their lives didn't matter. They were brick builders, and if you died, it really wasn't a cause for concern because there'd be another one to take your place. Or in Jerusalem, when they were on the underbelly of society, under Roman rule, when they had no rights, no social standing of any kind, their lives didn't really matter as much. These were our forebears. And to some degree, Advent comes as a call of hope. It comes as a promise of salvation, of judgment, and ultimately, to some degree, of justice. This is the Advent that we preach, and this is what Christ brings us in the world. And I can't help but relate those events to what happened in Missouri this past Monday night, when for non-whites, it was yet another example of perceived injustice that came down, and it takes its place in a long line of injustices that have been handed down. And you begin to wonder whether or not there is any justice, whether or not there is any God, whether or not there is any promise of salvation for people who are not white. I certainly wonder that. I've wondered that all week. And I think that Advent might be a time to wrestle with these things. It might be a time to wrestle with the feeling that our forebears must have felt, that their lives did not matter as much as Egyptian lives or as Roman lives. What must it have felt like to not feel as though you matter as much? I don't know. I don't know. I'm a white man living in 21st century America. I've got it pretty good. I don't know what it's like to go to Verizon Center for a hockey game and to be yelled, "You're at the wrong sport, buddy. Basketball's tomorrow night." I don't know what it's like to be followed around a department store. I don't know what it's like to be stopped by the police if my hands are in my pocket. I don't know what it's like to stop on a cold night in Charleston, South Carolina and go into a hotel lobby just to rest my feet and to warm my bones and not be told, excuse me, but you can't stay here. I don't know what it's like to send my child out to the grocery store by him or herself and wonder what's going to happen to them, who they're going to meet. I don't know what it's like to be driving on certain roads in South Carolina and know that I have to go the speed limit because I can't take a chance in getting pulled over. Not because I don't have money for a ticket, but because I don't know what mood the officer is going to be in. And I can't get out of my car because I don't know if I'm ever going to get back in. I don't know what that's like. But I know the anger and the outrage I felt on Monday night is still with me. And I think to some degree it's still with me because it's a privilege that I have. It's a privilege to be outraged. It's a privilege to be angry about it. There are people that can't be angry and outraged because they're terrorized by a decision that says that certain lives aren't worth as much. Going back to Advent, the season of darkness, we have to wrestle with these things of how our lives are. And we didn't create this world. We're certainly not responsible for it. But to some degree, we're responsible for the future. And when I think about the gospel, I think about the words that Jesus used, and I think about the things that God did. God always seems to be on the side of the underdog, right? God always comes in to save the lost, to protect the needy, to serve those who are less fortunate. This is the side that God usually chooses, right? Somebody at 9 o'clock asked me if that meant that God was a Redskins fan. I said, maybe not yet, maybe not yet. But I wonder if there's something to that. And I wonder when I see trailers for this new movie coming out in a few weeks called Exodus, God and Kings. And it's this wonderful face-off between Moses, played by Christian Bale, complete with his Batman voice, and Pharaoh. And we all know that Pharaoh is the evil one. Pharaoh is the one who equates himself with God, and Moses is the humble servant who says, let my people go. And we know the story, right? Because those were our people. The Hebrews, they were our people. They were our ancestors. So we know whose side of the story we're on. And we know what side of the story God comes in. But I wonder if the reason that God was on the side of the Hebrews was because they were being oppressed. It was because their power had been taken from them. Because they did not have the rights. Because their lives did not matter. As a matter of fact, Walter Brueggemann posits this theory that the word Hebrews actually comes from the ancient Egyptian word for slaves, which is Habiru. Right? So our ancestors were slaves. We come from this oppressed background. These are our people. And God is on the side of the slaves. God is on the side of the oppressed. God is on the side of the powerless. So where do we find ourselves? Advent is a time when we can wrestle with these things. When we can understand the certain privileges that we might enjoy based on the color of our skin. And we can understand a little bit about how the world works. Maybe it's not the way that Jesus wants the world to work. And being able to say, that's just how it is, might not be the best thing that we can say in God's presence. I have to wrestle with it. I have to wrestle with it because as my children grow up, they are going to wonder and have questions about how come they do things that their non-white friends don't do. Or how come things happen to people who aren't white that don't happen to them. I question it too. And I don't think it's the way that God wants the world to work. So this Advent we are called. We are called not just to sit in our darkness and wonder these things, but we're also called to act on them. As I said, I'm not responsible for white privilege. At the same time, it's up to me to take it down brick by brick, stone by stone. And it makes me angry. It makes me angry because I realize that my son has privileges in the world that he probably doesn't deserve. That others have to work for that he doesn't have to work for. And that's not right. I don't think it's what God wants. So this Advent, we wrestle with it. And we are called to stay awake, to be aware of our surroundings, to be aware of our own reality and how it differs from other realities. And what peace we can make with that. What peace we can make with injustice. What peace we can make with privilege. And the actions that we can take to bear our responsibilities as children of God. This Advent season is dark, yes, but it leads to a blinding light of God's glory coming into the world to make all things new, to make all things well. May it be so for us as well as everyone else. Amen.